Joining me on the program now from the Salvation Army Social Policy Unit, Paul Barber. Paul, kia ora, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, kia ora, Andrew. Good to be here.
This is a difficult situation at the moment for many people, especially for school leavers. They're getting the squeeze both ways on this one. It's tough to get a job, but it's also tough to stay on the benefit.
Yeah, the unemployment figures that were released yesterday just show how the job market continues to be really, really tough for people. We're at, at a national level, the unemployment level, the highest it's been for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
But it's particularly impacting younger people. So the 15 to 24 age group, 15 is the highest, 15.2% people of people unemployed. That's 3 times the sort of national average, and it's growing sharply. And similarly, what we call the NEET rate, the not an education and employment or training number, that's young people are really not connected to those things that could define their futures. That's also been increasing, and we're facing, it's just been a long, tough couple of years since the end of 2022, really, as unemployment has continued to climb. So we need to hope and pray that this is the peak, that we're being told it might be the peak of the unemployment cycle, but it's kind of hard to see for young people a way out of this. And unfortunately, we're seeing pressure put on young people too, with requirements around increased sanctions, around policies around being introduced to reduce the amount, basically reduce their access to support, and putting more emphasis on parental support.
Yep.
Where adults, 18, 19-year-olds. So our view is, look, this is time actually to put our arms around young people who are facing a really tricky job market, limited in many places, limited access to other options of training or education. And it's not time to blame young people who've carrying actually a really unfair part of the burden in this unemployment time.
It has been described as potentially this lost generation of young people that are just struggling to engage and to find their place in society. Heartbreaking, of course, also for the parents that are wanting to support their young people into a job where they can thrive and belong. Paul, you mentioned that, according to some economists, unemployment is likely to be peaking. Things are likely to get better as we roll into the busyness of summer. But hey, given that it's a record high, it almost couldn't get much worse than this, right?
Well, it's one thing is that if in some ways it's not as bad as it has been in some previous downturns and recessions in the 90s, and the levels we're looking at in some ways don't look as bad, but actually for young people they do. So I guess that's one of the points they're making. Particular groups are being more hard hit. Again, it's as I've said many times, it's the imbalance that are on Pacific and Māori workers, for instance, and women. So there's and if you're working, if you're living with a disability, it's a really, really tough trying to find employment. So as you say, look, we've had a disrupted years of COVID that have messed up the education and training for many young people. And so that's even more reason to be pretty compassionate in how we respond, and realize that there's a lot of things going on for people that other generations haven't experienced. So we need that support then to be built into our systems. So for instance, if people are coming out of schools, that they are connecting to the training, that there is an income support system that actually makes sure that people don't end up destitute, essentially, and end up on the streets. I mean, we're looking at the homelessness issues, and youth homelessness is very much an issue right now. So I guess that's my key message out of today. We better hope it's the peak, but I'm afraid whether there'll be a rapid improvement, we may get stuck around that peak for some time, and that's not particularly good news when there's a lot of people already struggling.
And it's difficult for businesses as well, difficult for them to have the certainty that they're going to get the income to be able to hire people. Something else which I've noticed, and this is anecdotal rather than the good research that you guys do, is that there's a lot more temp work available. You can get a short-term contract. An employer doesn't want to commit to taking somebody on the books, but they'll work with a temp agency. So officially, those people aren't unemployed, but they're certainly underemployed. And as we head towards Christmas, the employers can't afford to pay for the statutory holidays, so they're just off the books again, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of those sort of what they call seasonal impacts, but also there's this whole trend around casualization, the precarious nature of a lot of modern work,
Yeah.
and that's a big topic about how our work is changing, and we need to think there are good things about having some flexibility
Yep.
in work, but there's a lot of downsides as you're saying with income. People need a secure income. People need to be in contexts where they can develop and train and gain experience and be mentored and so on.
Mm.
So we're in another revolution that's being brought by both by technological change once again. But if we've got to remember to put people at the center and encourage people in our communities, people who are employing those who are in education, to make sure that they are trying to think, get the big picture and connect together about responding, because it's a complex world. But there are also just simple solutions like making sure we've got the basics right for
Yeah.
people, whatever is happening.
And hey, wanting to find some good news in all of this, because honestly, Paul, it is pretty bleak. And there is some good news at the most basic level. Some moves to enact legislation in New Zealand which would take us a stand against modern slavery. Now, I know that Salvation Army and a number of other groups have been advocating this for some time. There's a positive move in this direction. Paul, what's the details?
Yeah, I really think this is quite exciting and quite hopeful. And it's an example of how politics can work to make a change that everybody would like, and we just need to find a way to get there.
Yeah.
We've got yes, World Vision, the Salvation Army Tier Fund, and a range of other NGOs. We've all had long history of being involved in advocating around legislation that will require reporting on modern slavery and supply chains. So
Yep.
it's about requiring businesses to be large businesses to be looking at who's supplying them and the risks of modern slavery there, as well as developing legislative and responses here in New Zealand and to help support people who are victims of slavery and trafficking. So
Yep.
it's quite a complex space, and the details can get a bit overwhelming. But the basic opportunity now is that we've seen there's a complicated backstory to it, but essentially we have two members' bills in Parliament right now, one from a National MP, Greg Fleming,
Mm-hmm.
and one from a Labour MP, Camilla Bellich, both are wanting to introduce modern slavery legislation. These are on what's called the Members' Bill ballot. They're backbench MPs, and if their bill is drawn from the ballot, it could be brought into Parliament and debated as a piece of legislation.
Yep.
The other way that it could happen is a criteria that says if 61 MPs in Parliament who aren't involved in Cabinet agree to support it, then it can go straight to a first reading without a ballot. So that was a new rule that's relatively recent. I can't remember exactly when it was introduced, but it does mean right now, if we can get Labour and National MPs to agree, they'll have enough votes to bring modern slavery legislation into Parliament in the knowledge that there is a majority support to get it through.
Hey, honestly, Paul, if we had a show of hands in our Parliament, who's against slavery? You would hope that most of the hands would go up. Now, look, I know it's a little bit more nuanced to that, and some of the definitions and some of the requirements on businesses to provide supply chain information. There is some complexity to it, but I think this is one thing as humanity that we can agree on, is that slavery is bad. Let's do whatever we can to bring an end to that in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and also be able to make informed decisions about the products that we buy and some of the labour practices involved in that. So hopefully some positive news, an opportunity for us to perhaps get in touch with our local MPs and say, hey, please put your hand up.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, World Vision have on their website set up a page where you can do exactly that. Send an email to your MP asking them to support this a shared bill into Parliament on this issue. I'm really grateful to the work that have been put in by MPs, by Camilla Bellich and Greg Fleming to get this through. There's a lot of goodwill towards this, and I hope, it would be wonderful to celebrate this Christmas that we're taking a really significant step towards, reducing, eliminating slavery in a way that maybe hasn't been done for a generation.
Yeah, hey, this could be our Wilberforce moment. This could be our political moment in history.
You don't want to oversell it, but
okay, I'll pull
this
back.
is another opportunity, and we want to make it's really important to take these steps in the right direction and bring some hope, because there's people within New Zealand who are facing the situations that are slavery or slavery adjacent, and we're working hard to set up supports for people, but we want to be in that preventative space as well.
Sorry, Paul, I don't want to over-egg the eggnog, but actually this is something positive that we could do. That if each person does as they're able to do, we could make a real tangible difference in this space. As you say, World Vision has got a website there, worldvision.org.nz, for more information there. I'm sure you'll be able to find it. And Paul, just before you go, just wanted to give a shout out. You guys have started your Christmas appeal, the very good work that the Salvation Army does, made possible by good people like us. salvationarmy.org.nz for more details on that. Paul, thank you so much for the work you do. Thanks for taking the time to chat today.
Thank you, Andrew, and have a good day, everyone.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.